Hey, you guys ready to have some fun? We've got some British gangsters, Snake is back in the jungle, Lego Batman goes open world, and Indiana Jones is on the move. It's time for Reviews on the Run. Welcome to the show, everybody. This was a huge week for video game announcements, and I'm going to review the opening night live celebrations. Lots of games were announced. Of course, we're looking forward to things like Chronos. We only got a few weeks left until that game is out, and it looks amazing. Very excited about Ghost of Yotei, of course. It looks absolutely spellbinding and beautiful. I would expect nothing less out of Sucker Punch. And The Outer Worlds 2 looks like it's going to be truly sensational. But my favorite games from opening night live, first of all, Lego Batman, The Legacy of the Dark Knight, that is totally my jam. You guys know I'm excited for that. I love the classic Lego Batman games. This looks to be the largest ever open world, the whole Batman history on film. It's got sort of Arkham-esque controls and all kinds of gadgets and stuff. I think that's going to be one of the best games of 2026. I'm calling it right now. In a totally different direction, I was pleasantly surprised by Death by Scrolling, which was revealed at the show, a new one from Ron Gilbert. And in keeping with the alumni from the classic LucasArts adventure games, Tim Schafer's company Double Fine is creating a game called Keeper, which looks absolutely incredible. Now, of course, I also can't wait for the Order of the Giants DLC for Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. That's coming out in September, but I'm also super stoked that it's coming to the Switch 2 next year. The only thing that I really keep hammering on is that this is the version of the game to make sure it's on physical media. People are going to want to collect Indy for the Switch 2, and it's got to be on the cart. So I really hope, my fingers are crossed, that they do that. And of course, there were two big breathtaking conclusions to opening night live. We got sort of a taste of the gameplay of Resident Evil 9 Requiem, which looks awesome. It looks like it's going to have some cool open world elements to it. But we also got a nice tease of the future of the Black Myth Wukong franchise. They're going with a totally different character for the sequel, this guy riding this giant tiger, presumably with a whole new suite of abilities. But they also teased, the folks over at Game Science, that the Black Myth Wukong main story that we got to know with last year's incredible game is also going to continue. So I cannot wait to see where they go. Overall, though, opening night live was kind of a mixed bag because, again, there were a lot of free-to-play live service games kind of sprinkled in. To me, that's a lot of filler. Obviously, different strokes for different folks. People like different types of games, but for me, there was a lot of stuff that I know I'm just not going to play. I also really appreciated that the pre-show for opening night live was terrific, and there were lots of cool surprises, like Dench Attack, which is this kind of train-like take on Jet Set Radio Future while you're a giant anime train. It looks insane, and it looks like so much fun. Also, He-Man and the Masters of the Universe as a side-scrolling brawler. That's perfection. Overall, opening night live, when you take it all in totality, it was pretty decent, and there were things to get super excited about, but there was also quite a bit of filler and not a tremendous amount of surprise. Lego Batman was definitely the showstopper. I'm going to give opening night live a 7 out of 10. Another reveal event that took place this week was our first look at Kirby Air Riders for Nintendo Switch 2. Masahiro Sakurai was front and center for the whole show, and I loved his honesty. I love that he came out saying, why is making games so bloody difficult? And I have to be honest, like, I played and reviewed Kirby Air Rider for the GameCube when that came out 20 plus years ago. I was mildly entertained. I thought it was, a cutesy, interesting idea, but it didn't stack up to the best that the other kart racers, especially Mario Kart, really offered. But what I know about Sakurai-san is that he likes to double down on his concepts and his ideas, and he's all about finding lots of dense detail and reward from the mechanics that he plays with. He wants to attract as many people to these experiences as he possibly can and keep them simple on the surface, but there's a great deal of complexity, and that's what I really came to understand watching this direct from Nintendo. It was 45 minutes on this one game, and there is a lot going on here. There's a lot of open world exploration. There is a lot of emergent kind of challenge that happens as you're cruising around. There's lots of focus on multiplayer play and basically having like a LAN party and everybody kind of racing. And he's really positioning the game less as a racing game and more of an action and, almost an adventure game with speed elements in it, and of course there's lots of power-ups and lots of cool abilities that the characters have. It's super cutesy. The music is confection like all the Kirby games. And I gotta be honest, even though I wasn't crazy for Kirby Air Ride, I am now really freaking excited to play its Nintendo Switch 2 sequel. Kirby Air Riders looks like a lot of fun, but the thing that impressed me the most about this presentation was Sakurai-san's candor and his sense of humor about it all, and to see that kind of sparkle of brilliance that the guy is famous for. He doesn't miss. This was a great direct. I'm gonna give it an 8.5 out of 10. All right, let's talk about Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater. This is the full remake from Konami based on the 2004, so 21 years ago on the PlayStation 2, Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater. What's different with this remake is that everything has been redone in Unreal Engine 5, so the visuals are incredible. It's beautiful, beautiful production work. You can see the pores and the stubble on people's faces. Every wound that Snake picks up along the way, you can see it, you can feel it, especially the eye part. You guys know what I'm talking about. And there's just a tremendous amount of more opportunities to kind of just obsess over the details in this game, which truthfully blew our collective minds. Everybody that played it in its original state, we couldn't believe what we were witnessing. We're talking about a multi-layered story set during the Cold War. This is kind of the origins of Snake as a character. He has to confront a former ally and deal with some of the implications of that relationship. And then there are these series of bosses in the Cobra unit. It's really powerful storytelling. It's multi-layered, and it makes you kind of recognize the brilliance and the genius of Hideo Kojima and his collaborators. Like, they crafted so many incredible elements for this franchise, but I think it crystallized in this game. And I think Konami chose this as the remake game and not Metal Gear Solid 1 because of a couple of things. I think this was, the most satisfying work in the Metal Gear Solid franchise. And it's also a prequel, you know, it kind of sets the tone. And so if people pick this up, I think Konami will feel like they have to keep going and they have to bring us that inevitable Metal Gear Solid 1 remake. But I'm also hoping that there can be peace made between Kojima and his camp and Konami, and he can pass the baton to the right stakeholders to carry on with the Snake story and bring us more, or this universe, because it's so ripe. Let's talk about these bosses in this game, because I think that's a huge element of Metal Gear Solid 3 and Metal Gear Solid Delta. Is I think you're fighting the End, who's this crazy sniper with this bug eye. You're fighting a character named The Fear, who's got kind of like snake and vampire kind of sneak attacks. You fight this character named the Sorrow, which is, honestly, I don't even want to talk about the Sorrow, because if you haven't checked this game out before, it's such an amazing spoilery moment in this game. The Pain is this guy that's being swarmed by hornets, and he's spitting hornets out of his mouth like bullets, and you as the player have to kind of figure out the systems to pass all of these characters. And now in terms of the systems and the mechanics and the controls, you can play it like you're playing the classic game. I could not play it like that. I've played too many modern experiences, so you can also play this in a much more modern setting. But there are still clunky kind of elements here. Like, a big part of this obviously is the stealth mechanics, and you'll knock out characters with your close quarter combat, and you'll have to hide them in lockers and things like that. And some of that is just cumbersome and clunky. I found myself getting caught and found by guards almost every time when I would knock one out and try to hide them somewhere. Like, it just takes so long to reach down and hide a character. And we've had a lot of stealthy type games, like the Hitman games, a lot of games since Snake Eater and since Metal Gear kind of came to the market, where that stuff is all a lot more immediate. Now you get the whole core experience of the story and all the beautiful upgrades in terms of visual upgrades and audio upgrades and control upgrades. I mean, it really is just amazing. This is the kind of game, and this happened to me, where you'll sit down and like 6 hours will go by. You'll just get lost in what you're seeing because it's so cool. You're seeing Ocelot for the first time, and guys, it's just it's one of the best video games ever made, you know? Like, it truly is a 10 out of 10 masterpiece game, and it has been really well modernized. People really cared and crafted this with a lot of love. But in addition to the core game, you also get the snake versus monkey minigame, where you're chasing around a bunch of ape escape characters, and that is surprisingly compelling and fun. There's a time limit. You got to capture all the apes as quickly as you can. And there's also some other surprises buried in there, lots of modernized little surprises. There's tons of Easter eggs and lots of little cheeky bits that you're uncovering as you play. This is one of those psychologically twisted Hideo Kojima games, and it has been fascinating to be playing Death Stranding 2 recently and then jumping into one of Hideo's first true unequivocal masterpieces from back in the day. It's interesting to see that the brackets on that. If you can't tell, I love this game. The only thing I would say is that it also made me think that maybe this would have been the time to make a new Metal Gear Solid. Maybe this could have been Konami's impetus to just go for it and just build us something remarkable in this universe that took our breath away. And I know there'd be some aversion to that because Hideo's not involved, but so much effort and love and money and energy went into making this remake. I almost feel like that could have been channeled in something brand new. Still, this is unmissable. I'm envious of those of you that are going to play this for the first time. You are going to have to, set your parameters for dealing with some clunkiness, and there's going to be some outdated ideas and some of the storytelling and stuff, but God, it's such an incredible piece of work. I'm going to give Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater a 9.5 out of 10. All right, let's switch over to a television show that I got hooked on. I watched it on Paramount Plus. It's spearheaded by Guy Ritchie. It's called MobLand, and it stars Pierce Brosnan and Tom Hardy and a whole bunch of other terrific English actors. And as the title and the name suggests, we are hanging with this UK mob and some of the enemies that this mob has, both in the police force and also other organized crime divisions out there. And what we see through the course of the season is tensions mount and the wrong people get snuffed, and then we are into a full-out sort of mob war that isn't like Tommy guns out in the street. This is, the modern day, and people have to be a little bit more discreet, but there's some brutal murders that happen and some really tense moments that happen, and there's some shocking stuff that happens. And it's another one of these morality tales, and we keep seeing this again and again, where it's this family dynamic headed up by the patriarch and the matriarch of Pierce Brosnan and Helen Mirren, and they're crazy, and they have lived for years and years with the power that organized crime has given them, and they just do whatever the hell they want, and then there are repercussions, and it just feels like an awful place. Like, you look at all the characters, and if you're trying to sympathize with them, it's like, run, get the hell away from these terrible people, all of them. And it's a lot like Succession or Game of Thrones or Sopranos or Sons of Anarchy. It's like every time you see these criminal or awful, evil family dynamics, it's hard to empathize and care too much about these characters. I don't know how you feel about that. It's intriguing intellectually, and it's stimulating because there's some visceral stuff, but it's like they all deserve to go down. They're all horrible, and I felt like that. And so I kind of zone out a bit on it, not in terms of paying attention, but in terms of like having care or real concern. And even though they're ratcheting up the tension, it's like, yeah, I don't really care if they all die in this gun battle, It's well made. You can kind of see the machine of it, and the moments are stretched, and you can kind of feel like maybe this will be a hit and it will take care of the production team and the cast for a few years. Certainly things could be tightened up a little bit. And we've seen Guy Ritchie hit this organized crime space in more exciting ways before, but it is a compellingly produced, and I gotta tell you, like, Pierce Brosnan is doing some excellent, fantastic, crazy work in here, and Helen Mirren is having a lot of fun. Some of it is just so over the top and hammy, but it's hard not to kind of smirk at that. Tom Hardy's doing his, doesn't say a lot, but he's a man of action kind of work that we see in a lot of stuff. He's just such an incredible actor. We've seen him elevate beyond this. MobLand's pretty damn good. I've stayed with it through the whole season. It's not gonna like resonate and stay with me forever, but I did have a pretty good time with it. I'm gonna give it a 7 out of 10. Something else I checked out this week is the Battlefield 6 beta, and I won't talk too much about it because it's not the full game, but man, I played a lot of hours of multiplayer ridiculousness. This is such a cacophony and such a visceral kind of smack in the face. There's so much destruction, there's so much going on, and you expect that out of a Battlefield game, but now we're talking about just crystal clear fidelity with its visuals and the destruction of buildings and stuff as you're racing through them, and tanks going through crowded city streets that are crowded not not by traffic or anything, but by the debris, just the massive destruction that's everywhere. There's only been a few maps that have been shown off. One of the things that I have an issue with is that there weren't enough, planes and choppers and things for people to really test out. I never got into a plane. I never got into a chopper. I got into some tanks, and boy, those were fun to tool around in for a little while. I leveled up. I played mostly as the kind of assault guy, and I did pretty well with the sniper assault rifle, so I could, pepper with a few shots. So I got some nice long distance ones, and I started to get in the groove, and man, it feels incredible. I never got in the groove with the last Battlefield game. It always felt way too big and punishing in all of its complexities. This feels a little bit more like it's stripped down, back to basics Battlefield experience. It feels a lot like what I remember from playing Battlefield in the past, but of course it's modern, it's tuned, it's gorgeous, it looks incredible, the audio is insane. I think this might be one of the most exciting games of the year. It might be one of the biggest selling games of the year. I think Call of Duty Black Ops 7 has got a real challenger here. I know they're different games. I'm also excited about Call of Duty Black Ops 7 as well, but I'm more excited about Battlefield 6, especially after this terrific, super ridiculously addictive beta that they had, which I'm gonna give a 9 out of 10 to. I streamed a couple of cool indie titles this week. I played Tiny Bookshop, which is just as the name suggests, you run a little mobile bookshop and you cruise into this little town and you set up in different locations around the city, outside of a cafe, near a beach, outside in the parking lot of a supermarket, and you try to attract customers which seem pretty willing to come in and buy books from you. And you obviously go out and you buy inventory, whether it's new or used books, and you put them on the shelves in your little mobile bookshop, and you can paint the interior and put all kinds of little customizable widgets and kind of make it look the way that you want to. You're not really picking the books out of the boxes that you're picking up, at least as far as I've gotten into the game. But what you do in the game is you recommend books to people that come into the shop, and I found that to be incredibly addictive. And so you're actually going through real book titles with a little synopsis of what each book is about, and you're trying to match the books that you have to the people you meet, and you're trying to make the community a little bit better. And every day you get a newspaper and it's reporting on the events of the town, and your tiny bookshop ends up in the paper quite often, and so you feel connected to the population. It's really a cozy type experience. It's one of those games where you just slow down, you drink your tea as you're playing it, but there's also a little bit of pressure because there's a ticking clock. You've got to, sell some stuff within the day, and you've got people that are looking for things, and they're not just going to wait forever for you to give them a suggestion. You need to come back with some ideas for them, and if you don't match what they're looking for, it's always a drag. But very cool experience. I think Tiny Bookshop is a hit. I think it's going to be a great fit. I played it on PC, but I think it'd be a great fit for a handheld PC or the Switch 2, which is the first place that I found out about it when Nintendo revealed it in their Indie World event. Tiny Bookshop is great. I'm going to give it an 8.5 out of 10. The other indie title that I took a look at is This Seat Taken? And this is a very weird game where you're picking up little characters and you're plopping them into seats on a bus or in a cafe or in a movie theater, or all these different little environments. There's an overarching storyline that's happening about a movie star and characters wanting to sit beside each other and also to meet different people, and they've got different requirements. Somebody might want to steal popcorn out of somebody's bucket, or somebody might want a cup of coffee, or not want to sit next to somebody that's chewing loudly. And so you're trying to figure out how to position. It's like you're playing the hostess of a crowded, popular restaurant, and you're trying to make everybody happy. And it's compelling because you feel good when everybody's smiling and you get that big thumbs up at the end, but it's also a little slight. It's also a little thin. I do think it absolutely works as this great sort of temporary distraction from maybe some other titles that are out there, but it's not going to be one of the most remarkable indie titles you've ever played by any stretch of the imagination. I dig it though. I'm going to give Is This Seat Taken? A 7.5 out of 10. And finally, the last game that I looked at, and I definitely want to talk to you guys about this, is Sword of the Sea. This is the brand new one from Giant Squid, and it evokes the ideas and the presentation that we saw out of a game like Journey. There's elements of flower in there, so it's almost like this greatest hits of awesome indie experiences. A little Fumito Ueda influence in there as well. There's a lot of mystery that you're trying to solve. There's no real agenda. You're not sort of set with any kind of a checkpoint or anything like that. You're basically hopping on your surf sword and you're cruising over sand and you're cruising over water and you're doing some cool stunts in the air and you're collecting these little golden triangles and you're meeting shopkeepers that give you new abilities and you're encountering other characters and unraveling some of the stories of what has happened and why these lands have become a little bit desolate over time, as you are also bringing life back to them and opening doors and bringing water into spaces. And the world is changing around you and you just want to keep trucking. You just want to go and see where this magical mystery tour is going to take you. It's hypnotic. It's absolutely beautiful. The music is exquisite. You just get lost in it. And I totally recommend that you check Sword of the Sea out. One of the coolest things is that it's available for PS Plus players right now, so if you have a subscription to that, you can just download it to your PlayStation 5 and away you go, which is awesome. I looked at it on the PC with all systems go, like everything was in ultra mode and it took my breath away. This is spectacular stuff. I'm gonna give Sword of the Sea a 9 out of 10. All right, you guys, that wraps up this episode of Reviews on the Run. Thank you so much for watching. And hey, if you're in North America and you're looking for a killer deal on a new PC, check out game.intel.com/gamerdays. That is running from August 25th to September 7th. And over on our Facebook page for Canadians at facebook.com/electric playground, we're giving away an Intel Arc B580 graphics card. Go there to enter. I'll be back next week with a brand new episode for you, but make sure you're following the channel, you're subbed up, because I stream all the time. We've got lots to talk about, lots of great games, movies, TV shows, and all kinds of fun things are headed our way. We will see you soon, and until then, play forever.